I grew up in a Christian home where my folk were godly and truly loved the Lord. Were true believers, born again, had a radical change in their life when I must have been about 2 years old. And so then all I really knew was life in a Christian home. And that's what a turning point came in my life when I was 19. And that is where, that's my point of reference. I had an encounter with God when I was maybe 6. Through my teenage years, I had some encounters with God. But that was, something happened. And by the grace of God, I've never looked back. My dad was in the ministry. And so we'd grown up poor. Not poor, but we always lived in a nice house because it was a church house, you know. And we went on holidays because the people used to give us holidays. And I'm not complaining, I'm just giving you a fact. But there was never extra money. For instance, I could never, it's a silly thing, but I couldn't have the hockey stick I wanted. You know? I couldn't have the soccer, but I'm not complaining, guys, don't feel sorry for me. I'm just doing how it was. I couldn't have when I got 16, I wanted a motorbike. I couldn't have one. I wasn't bitter about it. But I remember getting to a place in my life, there's no ways I'm going to be like that. There's no ways. And so I started studying, and I remember choosing what I studied. I decided to study, which was, at that time, the hardest thing I could think of, and that was chemistry. Because if you study chemistry, then other oaks can't catch you. And then I worked my way through that. Then I said, well, I won't just do a 3 years, I'll do a 4th year. I'm one ahead of the next guy. And then I realized I didn't really like chemistry. Really, I'm a bad chemist. I learned to write exams, that's what I did. Anyway, and I remember saying to the Lord, I can't do chemistry. This is going to drive me mad. I worked at Atomic Energy Corporation. It was an incredible place. There must have been 9,000 people working there. And the number of doctors and people with master's degrees, they were just all over, from all nations. I remember there were some Jewish guys, there were some guys from Holland, some Germans, and it was really a center. And I got to work with a scientist while I was a student, and what we were doing is we were the little sights on your R5 rifle. Those of you who went to the army, that little grey luminous thing, that thing has actually got a radioactive gas in called tritium. And so we used to buy those from overseas at a great price, and so we had to now learn to make them. And so from the beginning, so it was quite intriguing. I worked behind a coded door because it was got to do with the military and so on and so forth. But eventually I thought, initially you think, oh, this is amazing, I'm a scientist. But eventually I thought, oh my word, what have I done? Because I want to work with people. You punch your code at the door, you go into the laboratory, and you're all alone with this apparatus. Anyway, long story short, I then said to God, Lord, I can't do this, you better help me. I need to use chemistry and I need to work with people. And I got a job as a salesman, selling water treatment. You know, they love you because you do your work well, but they can't stand you because you can't party with them. And so eventually I missed out on promotions. So they promoted a number of dorks above me, as far as I was concerned. And I thought, this is my time, you know, I've got promotion, but they just wouldn't give me the one I wanted. So then I said, well, that's it, I'll do my own business. I don't have to wait for these guys. So then I went into business. And we started with an exhaust company. I bought an exhaust shop, and then we became distributors of exhaust. You might know Cowley Exhaust. Became involved with them, and from there we that then was also too small for me because we exhausted the market. Because exhaust stopped breaking after the service plans came in. All the cars are stainless steel exhaust, and the exhaust industry actually died. Anyway, then we started distributing paint. And we expanded that business where we actually started painting trucks for companies. So we It was a new concept. No one had done it. We went, for instance, you see all the International Eagle trucks. For about 6 years, we painted all those trucks. I think, you've seen tanker services that turquoise and silver. I think we color changed at least 600 or 1,000 of those in our time. And the business grew like crazy. And within, 6, 7 years, and we started with nothing, we really did very well. We used all our cash to expand. So we had an office in Durban and in Bloemfontein and in Welkom and in Van der Bijl and 2 in Joburg, with a big, beautiful place where we could paint and we could prepare 12 trucks in our workshop, those big eagles, and we had 4 spray booths. Roll up the doors and you have these 4 eagles painted. I don't know if you're a petrol head, a big truck like that does something for you. But it was great, it was an achievement. But we were stretched for cash because we had just grown. And then the bank, of course, came and they saw we had a contract with Imperial Group. And when they saw our contract with Imperial Group, they just said, how much money do you want? So we thought, here we go. And we just took the money and we grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And my whole family was working for us. My father, my brothers, my sister, all working in the business. And so on. And we had a very nice building in Benoni. It was a 3-story building. And, that drive that was in you was really being satisfied. All along, I was serving the Lord with all my heart. I was preaching every night, most nights. We had planted churches. We had developed a campsite in 3 Rivers, a conference center. We started a church in Van der Bijl and in Bethlehem in the Free State. And it was really going well, like exceptionally well. And we were just like on the edge. We were now busy, making a truck repair center so that we could actually rebuild trucks that roll. And there's a lot of money in that, enormous amount of money, because the spares are so much and the labor is big. And so when everything lined up, with the premises, I think we had, if I remember correctly, we had something like 3,000 or 4,000 square meters of interlock paving that you could drive a link on and it wouldn't. It was a massive building. We parked all of those, we parked about 110 trucks in our yard. And they used to pay us, the Imperial Group, for parking fees. That's one of the contracts we got. And we built the tailboards. Because we gave such a good service that anything they wanted, they eventually come to us. They said, can you build tailboards? We do anything. We make tailboards. Then we start a production line and we make the tailboards. And eventually, and this was with the Imperial Group. Well, you know what happened is in 2000, and when was the crash? 2008. It wasn't long before Imperial Taco was 1 billion behind.
Yeah.
And they sent the guy from Lindsay Saker. You know Lindsay Saker? His name was Mr. Kukumura. I'll never forget him. A young guy. Go and fix it. He was there for 6 months. I'll never forget the day. He walked in apparently. He gave his coat to someone. He said, switch off the lights. They switched the lights off in one day. Truck production stopped. That was half our business gone in one day. Like that. They paid our account. But then they were on a 30-day account with us. And then the trouble began for us. Because now we'd extended ourselves. Within reason, because everyone was. In 2006, remember 2007, the economy was flying. I was an inexperienced businessman. But everything we touched just worked. And but I'll never forget, I was driving along one day and I was having fun. Because I was a driven person and I was relatively young. And I remember driving along to a meeting and saying, God, you know what, I don't think I can die yet. I really said, I wasn't being cheeky, you know, I was saying, God, I was thinking about life. And I would drive an enormous amount, I always have. Then I'd wondered why I hadn't driven into one of these trucks, because I'd been past accidents and how they happened. And I said, well, Lord, I conclude, I think I'm just too involved. And I was just chatting, I wasn't being arrogant, but obviously with hindsight. And so on and so forth. And of course, in the business, we employed many people from the church. And I remember people coming into my office and saying, Rene, you are so blessed because you put God first. That's why you're so blessed. Obviously, I didn't really listen to that. But I remember many others came and said, that's why you're so blessed. That's why it's going so well with you financially and with your business and so on. Anyway, long story short, we battled it out. That was 2008. It was in fact November 2008, December 2008. It's like the customers just stopped paying. Yeah. So I was owed like 13 million rand. No one paid. Like, no one paid. We had some big customers who had owed a couple 100,000 rand each every month. And Taco had gone. That was our cash cow. And no one paid. You don't know what standard that feels like. I remember I went on holiday. It was horrendous. Then it came to about January, February, and I realized this ship ain't going to float. We'd done everything. We had put every last cent in, and it just couldn't work. And I remember the day I realized that was it. I remember I was lying in bed and I started crying uncontrollably. So my wife grabbed the pillow and shoved it over my head because she didn't want the kids to hear me cry. We had to close our doors, and it was so traumatic. I remember going to retrench. Obviously, you start retrenching people, closing offices. I remember sitting in Bloemfontein on the pavement and crying after telling them they have to leave because they were like children. We built this thing together. But anyway, guys, I don't want to bore you with the detail. We had property. I tried to sell the property. The building we had, I owed 3 million. I wanted 3 million. No one wanted to buy my property. At the auction, they sold it for 6 million. They were punching for it. That was like 3 months later. I said to the Lord, my house, I own 1 million. All right? That's all I wanted to sell. And the auction went for 1.8 million. I had a building in Benoni, same thing. I think we owed 900. I wanted 900 to settle the bond. At the auction went for 2 million, 2.5 million. I had a building in Welkom. And also, once again, I think we owed 400,000 or 500,000. I wanted to settle a bond. At the auction went for, I think it was 1.5 million. It's like that God shut all the doors. Bang, 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 bang. If I had just sold the building, I needed about 3 million rand. Not even, I remember I needed 2 million rand just to get over. But the market had become so nervous, remember after the crash, so many people went bankrupt that no one would lend you a cent. Yeah. Not a cent. Before, they just wanted to lend you money in 2006. And after that, not a cent. And anyway, but really what that was, you see, what I never understood was God had another purpose for my life. I loved my wife. I was a good husband. I was a good father. I was preaching. People were getting saved, born again. And everything was actually in order. But what actually happened is God said, Rene, I don't want this for your life. And if he had asked me nicely as a gentleman to give him my business, I would have said, no. What is wrong with this? I'm having fun. I'm living my dream. I was living my dream. I really was. Then, I'm preaching. I employ 20 or 30 Christians. But you see, the point is God didn't want me there. But it was extremely traumatic. We had to move out of our house because I had signed surety for everything. And it was traumatic. Believe me, it was really traumatic. And so we left our house, and for her, it was traumatic. And I didn't get cross with her. I mean, I didn't do that on purpose. So God gave me grace just to live with her and so on and so forth. But it was traumatic. Of course, quite humiliating, because now you had to give your car back. But you won't believe it, guys, that even some people in the church, and I'm not pointing fingers, I would be the same, but I'm different now because I've been there. Even they looked a bit differently at you. Some of them no longer were not so friendly because you're not driving the flashy car. There were some others, though, you won't believe it, those that weren't so wealthy. The one brother came to me, and I know his financial setup. He says, Rene, come, I want to buy you a house. I said, no, don't. His name is Bruce. He's a lovely brother. I said, Bruce, no, you don't have to worry, I'm sure I'll survive. But he was genuinely going to go and buy me a house that day. I said, no, and I know that he would have spent his saving on my house, because we've been together in fellowship in the church for many years. So I know exactly where he is. I was extremely moved, but God was busy working in my life, and then, and obviously wanting to change the direction of where He wanted me to be, even though everything was going well. Now that was that. So I kind of dealt with the humiliation. Anyway, so what happened then, I'm almost done on this part, is I'd been negotiating to become a distributor of an international paint company before we went bankrupt. They came and saw us, they liked our setup. So they phoned me and said, hey dude, why haven't you been contacting us? I said, no, we are no more. So they said, no ways, man, we like the way you operate. Find someone with money. We want to work with you. So I said, genuine, yeah. So I phoned the exhaust guys, because that was still ticking over on the side. There's some wealthy guys, the owners of Ikali. The one old man was very wealthy. I said, here's a business plan. He said, I'm in. We're on the aeroplane to Holland. We get the distributorship. Right, so our business closed in March 2009. About April, I started making these plans. And so we became the distributor, and he made me the general manager of the company. This started taking off, and so on, and they came and visited us, and obviously now you've got this old man's money, so things are going well, containers are paid, everything can run properly, and we don't have to go to the bank for money, everything's going well. And I'll never forget, it was in January, I think, 2010, in January. So now I go to Bloemfontein, and there's only men over here, so I can say this. But I realized one of my testicles are changing what they used to be. It's getting a bit smaller and harder. So I think all these things do, as you guys know, they're not always the same size every morning. They change, depends what's been happening, Anyway, so I think, oh well, it's just one of those things, But I realized that it's not sore anymore. You can press it, it's hard, and it's got smaller. I thought, oh well, I better go and see a doctor. So a friend of mine who's in the fellowship, he was in Bloemfontein, in one of our churches. His name is Colin Mathies. So I'm there on business. I phoned him, I said, listen dude, you must check my testicle out. He's a urologist, so he does do that. So I go there, it was 5 o'clock, I remember it's late. I phoned him, I said, listen, I'm late, man, don't worry, I think it's serious. I want to get home. He says, no, come Rene, let's have a quick look. And so I go there, he has one look, he says, you've got cancer. I said, what? I said, rubbish. He said, this is cancer until proven otherwise. That's how we analyze this condition of it. So I don't listen to him, I say, yeah, whatever. Get my car, the next morning I go and see another urologist in Joburg. So let me just see if Colin is not altogether qualified yet, he's still he was still specializing. I go to the urologist, he looks at me and says, you've got cancer. Alright? Now our family dies from heart attacks, not cancer. There's no cancer in our family. But a number of them died from heart attacks. So I'm expecting to die from a heart attack, not a cancer. 4 years. So now I go and tell my wife, we find out I've got cancer. Well, she just goes, she was this far in her shell, she crawled right back into her shell. She's an occupational therapist. And then she worked even harder, because she decided, oh, I have to save this family now. First of all, my husband. I'll never forget the day when I declared bankrupt. she came out with a packet of money. Because now we never had a car. I said, this honey? No, I've been saving it. $100,000. I said, well, you're not a bad wife, eh? I'm glad she never showed it to me before, because I would have put it in the business. So I said, now we're going to go and buy a car. So we went and bought a car for cash. But this really, she just like crawled into her shell and couldn't believe this was happening to her. And anyway, then I had to go for chemo. And not everyone reacts the same to chemo. I just felt myself going. I began to have a panic attack. So they gave me a little white pill, put it on my tongue, and I just forgot where I was. It was amazing. I kept some of those. Eventually, after 1 week, I could not drive myself home anymore. I was shot. I remember getting home. They say day 1 is the Monday. Obviously, Saturday is day 6. Day 6 isn't too bad, but day 7 is terrible. So I remember jumping up on day 7. We were living in a double-story house. I rushed down the stairs and almost fainted at the bottom of the stairs. So I think that's it, I'm going to carry on as normal. Well, God put me on my back for 3 months. I was nauseous, guys. Eventually, when you wee, you smell chemo. When if you wipe your face and flew in your own, you smell chemo. Nothing tastes the same anymore. I became horribly constipated. Just my whole bowel stopped working. I remember phoning the doctor on a Sunday afternoon. I said, dude, you're going to have to put me under general anesthetic and clean me out. He says, no anesthetist is going to do that. I said, because also you start developing sores on your toes, your hands, and around your anus, little cracks. And it is so painful, and I thought, well, this is the end. I remember lying thinking about death. Thinking about my wife, she'll look after herself, I've got a good insurance policy. I think about my son, he's already, I don't know how old he was, I can't remember, but he was 12 or 13 or something. Then I thought about my daughter, and I lost all interest in dying. Because I was now worried who's going to look after her, And so these are the things that go through your life. But for 3 months I could do nothing. I sat in a chair. When I say nothing, I mean week 2 and 3 you could go around, but I couldn't work. I sat there for 3 months. And I tell you what, guys, what happened was God did a spiritual DNA change. That's what that was all about. It was a spiritual DNA change. He changed the person I was. And I'm not saying you're going to have to go down that road. But you see, if he had come to me and said, give me your business, because I want you to be more involved in the kingdom, I would have said, but I don't understand your request. So he said, I'll have to take it from you, which he did. I then didn't hear clearly, so then I jumped straight back into business. He said, no, but hang on, you weren't listening. And so he then put me in bed. But I remember one day listening to someone's testimony also. It was the best time of my life. And as she said this, the lights went on and said, I know exactly what you mean. That was the best time of my life. In fact, I'll do it all over again just to have the spiritual experience. God altered my DNA. I remember laying in bed, observing my family, and seeing that things went all together well between my wife and my daughter. You see, my wife, as I said to you, is a very, very analytical kind of person. My daughter is a bit like me. And I remember looking at this and calling my wife in and saying, you have to change. She's a child. You have to become versatile and get into her world. You're trying to get her into your world, and you're going to destroy her. And I tell you what, folk, something happened, and they've got an incredible bond. And so it was on the 22nd of April at 20 past 10, 2010. I just finished was on the last stint of chemo, and I remember saying, when I'm healthy and I can drive to office, I'm going to go and resign. And it was about that time. I got in the car, I drove to the office. I said, Alex, I resign. I no longer want to be the general manager. I'm not interested in this. I can't. I've heard what God has said to me. And what happened then is In November 2010, I went into full-time ministry. I still worked they paid me a salary, and I worked for a while at the exhaust company and the paint company. And then I went into full-time ministry, and, well, that's the story for another day. And I stand here before you, and there are many times when I never long for my business. If you gave it for me, I'd sell it immediately. I just realized how much it had hard work written all over it. There's easier ways to make a living than that. I don't long for the money, but there are days sometimes when your heart, you wonder, could it have been different? But you see, there's something been written in my heart so indelibly that I just keep going back to that amazing change that God made in my life, and so on. And I thought of a scripture to share with us, just for the last couple of minutes. And it's the story of Samson. And in fact, I was standing outside there eating my roll, and I was looking at one of you. I won't tell you who it is. And as I looked at that person, he was a younger man, saying, "It wasn't you or you, I know Gerard, it's younger than you." I looked at them, and they were a picture of youth. And, a young man stands differently to an older man, because he hasn't got so many K's on, His camber and his towing is still good. And I looked at the guy I was looking at, and I thought, what? The Lord just ministered to me, what? It's about your drive. Every one of us can relate to drive. Men. That's what life's about. You've got here by drive, isn't it?
Yes.
And if you've had a daughter and a son, you'll know the difference. I remember one day going to a birthday party and fetching my son at the Spur. They had one of those trampolines in a cage with a cage around, Yeah. And so I arrived early, and there was a whole lot of boys in there, and there was like this pile of flesh, and they were just like fighting and wrestling, and I was trying to figure out what was the point. Was someone going to win? Were they trying to kill someone? I was just standing there, and when he got out, I said, "Boy, what were you actually doing?" He said, "Dad, we were being rough." That's it. We were being rough. It's that raw drive within you, isn't it? From that age. I watched my daughter at her birthday party. What they did? They sat around, and they had a favourite tea party. There were two. Once we got a horse, and in the back garden, we had quite a big back garden, and this little pony, they took rides the whole afternoon because they felt like a princess when they were on the horse. They just to feel like a princess, that was great for them. Then they'd have a tea party where they had those little cups of tea. They drank tea the whole afternoon. And they just chatted and talked and so on and so forth, and had the odd swim. But us guys, we have got to drive. And when I go to the Bible, the person with a great drive for me was Samson. Would you go along with that? Then I get a proper drive. You've got to be motivated to kill 1,000 oaks with the jawbone of an ass. You can't be a slop oak. You've got to like a challenge. Are you with me? I'd get exhausted to say, "Listen, can we negotiate? How much will this cost? Can I pay it off?" But this oak, he took that jawbone. In fact, he had to hit the oaks hard. It's not a joke. You couldn't take 3 swipes at one oak. It was one swipe for one oak. And it was overs could overs. But this incredible drive of Samson eventually was his downfall. Because you see, he wanted something that was not good for him. That's where it all started. He wanted who was it? In Timnath. A woman, he went down to Timnath and he saw a daughter amongst the Philistines. The Philistines were the enemies of the children of God. And his parents said to him, "Are there no nice girls amongst us? You're such a good looking oak." He had done the oath of Nazarite. His hair was most probably down here. He most probably had a beautiful zig with a 6-pack. He was a looker, this oak. And he could have chosen anyone, but guess what? He wanted the Philistine. And he wanted her, so he was going to get her. Guys, there's a bit of that in all of us, isn't it? Somehow, us men, our problem is we often are driven for things that maybe are not good for us. That's where our downfall is. And somehow we can get involved. That's exactly what he did. And eventually it became his downfall. Eventually he got Delilah. He went from that one to Delilah. And eventually he became complacent. He knew his strength was in his hair. But he became so complacent that he actually let her play with his hair. And eventually he said, cut my hair. How blind did he become? God wants to deal with you in the way he's dealing with you.
That's right.
That's how he does. But the outcome of it is going to be absolutely amazing and beautiful. And my challenges of this morning, may I share this with you? And in fact, let me tell you my last tear-jerking story. So, I'm a petrol head. So I'm 53 going on 16. And I love motorbikes. Is there anyone else who likes motorbikes? Cars, And so I love motorbikes. I like one just to be parked in my garage. I like just to look at the thing and take it for a ride, and I don't think about falling. And so obviously my son was like that. So I drove an Audi R8. Before that I had a 330 BMW and a whole lot of other cars. And so of course we would look at nice cars. And I'll never forget, after God ministered to me, Rene, while you loved me, there were things in your life that weren't in order. Like, for instance, you go and preach to a bunch of poor people and you arrive in a 700,000 motorhome. You know, I did that. And so you say, trust God for bread, and they look out the window and say, yeah, sure. Whatever. And you don't have to trust God, you buy your own bread. You know. And that was nothing for me. In fact, straight after that, the R8 came out. And I remember that car was 650,000, the R8 was about 1.05 million when they came out. And I thought, well, that's not a lot more. I'm going to buy you next. I remember walking past. You are in my sight. Imagine arriving at this breakfast with an R8. I tell you right now, guys, you'd all look at me through different eyes, most probably. Especially, you'd say, well, this oak was made it. And I didn't even think about that. But God arrested me. He arrested me on that. He said, Rene, that is an imbalance. You don't need a car like that. And so I'm not judging you if one of you got a Ferrari. I'd love to take it for a ride this afternoon. Anyway, so this is where it just dropped into my heart. We went to gym, to Virgin Active, it was near our house, and we walked in the parking lot. And there was some other new fancy car. And Jared said to me, Dad, check the car. Before I could catch myself, I said, boy, those things aren't important. I couldn't, it just like came out. And as it came out, God said to me, you taught him that. You taught him that. I remember weeping, turning my face the other way as we walked to the gym. And then God said to me, be careful what you do and how you live, because your children are watching you. And so, in a very simple way, I think this morning it's important for each of us to get the point to say, what is driving you? What drives you? Where's your focus? What is on your wish list? And I want to ask you, from the bottom of my heart, to make sure you've included God in what you wish for. We put it like that. For me, God took me from being a Christian businessman to being a full-time preacher. That's where God wanted me. Maybe today, I don't know, many of you, maybe today you haven't even considered God. You know, you're living your life and God, you've reduced God to saying grace and shooting up a prayer when you're in trouble and asking for journeying mercies when you go on holiday. It's amazing. We never pray for journeying mercies unless we go on holiday. Are you also that crazy? We drive all day, but when you go on holiday, we say, please bless us as we drive. I've concluded God keeps his hand upon those who he loves. And every now and then, just don't forget to say thank you. And maybe that's where you are. You know, maybe your drive, maybe today you're sitting here disappointed because you have not achieved what you want to. Maybe, but I want to ask you this afternoon, this morning, won't you take time just to include God in your reasoning? Just start there. Because I know as you do that, it will unfold to be amazing. My last thought is, if you've got drive in life, God's given it to you that you might glorify him. I want to tell you, God has a drive. God is a driven God. You can't look at nature and creation and not conclude that this was a God who was driven when you look at the detail of nature and the detail of what is created. and how it works. And in fact, everything is happening under the direction of God. He's moving towards a point. And right now the world does not see God's amazing power and glory. He sent His only begotten Son to die on the cross. It was a manifestation of God's drive and His love towards us. So I share with you in simplicity this morning and say, please don't make the mistake I made and exclude God in any way from your reasoning. Stop and say, Lord, I just want to make sure that I've included you in what I'm doing, to the degree to which you want me to include you. Amen.